We are so delighted to be hosting the Austin premiere of The Green Border with Agnieszka Holland, who will join us for a Q&A via Zoom after the screening. So please stick around to speak with Agnieszka Holland, one of the great masters of global cinema, who will be with us on screen. She was here with us in person a few years ago in 2019. For those of you who had the luck to see her here in person, you know how much she'll enjoy speaking with her after seeing the film. Agnieszka joins us thanks to Connect, who are a local arts organization connecting artists with each other and with the community, and they have a special focus on immigrant artists and women, so we're really grateful for their support for this screening and for connecting with Agnieszka Holland to have her here. So The Green Border, I will not lie to you, this is a very, very difficult movie. You are in great hands with Agnieszka Holland, one of the great directors who could take on this topic with such power and such respect and such grace. And it's a movie where I really encourage you to be respectful of others in the room, because we're going to have big feelings watching this movie. It's a hard movie, and one that I'm happy that we are showing on MLK Day, because it's a day where we're thinking about collective freedom and justice that is undue, or justice that is due right now to so many migrants who have not received justice. So watch the film, and I'll see you afterwards. We'll have Agnieszka Holland up here on screen, and we'll have a great discussion with her and hear from her about the making of the film. Thank you so much for being here. Wonderful. Okay, thank you so much for joining us, Agnieszka Holland. So here we are in Texas, as we see everyday refugees on our borders and dying within our borders, like we see in the film. So this is an urgent issue around the world. And I wanted to ask you, because you do tell stories about, with this kind of urgency, what propelled you to dive into this particular story at this time?
I'm following the situation of the refugees on several borders for quite a long time, and especially from 2015, when several millions of Syrians had to leave Syria in war. And it created a lot of questions, and it created a lot of fears, and it changed Europe. It changed Europe till now. It means we realize that we are not able and we are not ready to open up to the people in need if they are somehow can attend our comfort zone. And the European Union didn't have really the rational and efficient response to the refugee crisis. And I don't think that since it became more conscious and worked. I think that the question of migration will be the most important question of the next decades, and the response of a rich world and safe world is less and less based on the human rights and values. So when it started on Polish-Belarus border, and when I realized that the Polish government took in some way advantage of the crisis, I thought that it's my duty to look closer to what's going on. The response in 2015, the incapacity to deal with the huge amount of refugees, the weakness of Europe, the fragility of Europe, the rise of the populist and right-wing governments made that dictators like Putin or Lukashenko understood that using refugees, it will be the most efficient and cheapest weapon. to destabilize the European Union. And they started on Polish-Lithuanian, Latvian border in 2021, and in late summer it became clear that we are facing the new crisis. But Polish government decided to take a political advantage of that. As Putin or Lukashenko was taking, of course, political advantage, manipulating and organizing it, Polish government decided to create some kind of the laboratory of fear, lie, and violence. When the first refugees became mostly Syrian, also Afghan and Iraqian became visible on the border, the zone had been closed, and the access to the zone had been forbidden to humanitarian organizations, to medical organizations, to the observers, and also to the media. So media was unable to report what really is going on in that zone, which became militarized. And when the activists tried to help, and the groups of the activists and after also local people organized quite quickly, because they've seen that the people who are crossing the border first are not prepared for the conditions. They are the huge forests and swamps, and also they are not prepared for the pushbacks, which was decided immediately. When they've been pushing back to Belarus, and you've seen it in the film, they met the incredible violence, the tortures, and quite often the rapes, and was pushed back to Poland. And like that, they became some kind of the punching ball, some kind of the ping pong ball. Several died, several are crippled to life, and in the first place, they lost this feeling of the dignity and security. I spoke to several refugees afterwards, and several of them are psychologically very, very damaged. But at the same time, the activists who try to save the lives have been criminalized, and they have to hide in front of the militaries and border guards. They have to became some kind of the partisans, the underground, the underground humanitarian army. I found it totally abnormal. And by the end, the border guards suddenly, which was always very respected and absolutely necessary military formation, have been obliged to follow the orders, which not only was inhuman, but also was illegal. So everybody became somehow the victim of that trap. And the authorities, in my opinion, have been doing that to take the advantage of the propaganda they created around of that, and to spread the feeling of the insecurity and imminent danger coming with those people. The refugees have been dehumanized, what's called the terrorists, the pedophiles, zoophiles. They've been presented not as human beings, but as some kind of the dangerous weapons and some kind of insects.
Unfortunately, this is very familiar to us here as well. And I wanted to ask, because you made some very important filmmaking decisions in telling the story that make it so visceral. And I wanted to ask specifically about the way that you show media, and also the choice to sort of follow, from a realist perspective, the specific journey of the Syrian family. And we feel influenced sort of by what would be a documentary, but instead we see it so beautifully through the drama that you lay out. And so I just wanted to ask about technique and also the choices that you made in storytelling and how these decisions were made.
The first thing, I decided to react very quickly when the situation started. like probably a few weeks after the area have been locked by militaries, I decided to gather all possible documents and witnesses. We went with a group of activists, with my screenwriters, to see how it works. After I found the way to several refugees and had their statements. And by the end, we succeed also to speak to some border guards. So we had like very quickly, in 1 month and a half, a pretty complete amount of the documentations. And the decision had been made in the discussion. This was like 2 ways. All to focus on one event, one particular event and one particular place, some kinds of the pars pro toto, or to show the situation from different point of views and in some kinds of the totality. And I decided, it means we decided, but I felt it the strongest, that because it will be first film about that situation, practically unknown out of our region, and maybe the last one, because it was very difficult to make the movie about that subject. We cannot count on any kind of the support from the governmental funds or public funds. So it will be good to show the more epical and the more polyphonic perspective, and to show exactly the perspective of different players of the story. And after we constructed the characters of which story layer, and it was the work as normally it happens during when you write a feature film, fiction somehow based on several documents, but nothing is one-to-one. We combine the stories, we combine the characters, we try to make them in the same time typical and unique, which is always very difficult, because we wanted it to be alive, to be close to those people, and especially to the refugees in the first place, because as I said, they've been for the Polish population dehumanized. Their story, their choices, their dreams, their emotions have been practically unknown. Mm-hmm. What helped us also is when we found the actors to play Syrian family and the Afghan woman, and they have a refugees experience, some of them very dramatic, and they brought also their own, their own experience, their own emotion, and their motivation to tell the story in the way which will be the most true and the most specific at the same time. And it was same with other characters. So we've been looking for the truth, but also they have been not only that particular character, but they somehow portrayed the story of their people. And the construction was, we did several versions of the script. We collaborated closely, 3 of us, because it was three screenwriters. Dividing the tasks, and by the end, after we worked together on the final script, we finished it we started in October 2021, we finished in January 2022, and I wanted immediately to make that film because the situation was more and more dramatic and more cruel. And I wanted the film to reach the widest audience possible. But it took about 1 year before we collected enough of money to start the shooting. So we started in March 2023, and we finished very, very quickly for the scope of the movie to be ready for the Venice Film Festival by the end of August. When we've been looking for money, the full-scale invasion started in Ukraine. which in the first moment we had the impression that it's so big and so important and so dramatic and tragic that maybe our story is not relevant anymore. But after a while, we realized that it's maybe even more relevant, and that somehow it is the story of the same process. And the reaction of Polish population to the Ukrainian refugee crisis has been totally different. And it was so massive and so spontaneous. The movement of the solidarity and help was so profound and so moving and so beautiful. And government that time supported the population in that attempt to help as much as possible and then beyond the possibility. That the contrast between those two borders, which are very close one to other, and the treatment we had for one refugees and for others, have been shocking, and put another question, so specified some questions we had before. So we decided to include that Ukrainian situation as a kind of the epilogue.
Yes.
And you see this in the film, so I will not tell you what is in the film, but just to try to explain the motivations behind.
I just have to congratulate you on such a masterwork that is also so difficult to finance and distribute. And I wonder if you can offer some insight. I mean, it sort of can't be overstated that to not have the support of the government to make a European film like this is unbelievably difficult, and you've managed to overcome that, but then you're still dealing with the pushback, including people speaking out against the film, political campaigns against the film. So I just wondered if you could offer some insight into both sort of overcoming that difficulty of financing and distribution, and also to have a film out there that is causing such an uproar, and how are you dealing with that?
Well, several people decided to help us, and in the first place, I contacted the Polish producer who I never worked before with, but I had some kind of the instinct that it appeared to be very good instinct to ask him if he will go with me on that journey, knowing that it's very risky for him. And my situation is. It was relatively better because I'm not dependent entirely on Polish financing and Polish cinema. I work quite often internationally, so I knew that if I will be totally censored and blacklisted in Poland, I still can hope to have the work out of Poland. But he is Polish producer, and he took enormous risk. But together we started to look for the money, and we found some private investors. Call them investors, maybe exaggerated, but they knew very well that they don't have a lot of chances to have the money back. But they believed in the project and believed in us, so they put some private money. And after we found the co-production partner in France, Belgium, and in the Czech Republic, and the national funds of those countries participated in the financing of the film. And by the end, the European Fund, Euroimage, also gave us the money. So by the end, we had quite possible amount to shoot low budget, fast shot film. And I will not tell you about another things which was happening in the meantime. After the Polish Canal Plus joined us, and Polish distributor, and some German television art, and so it was growing. And we started before the budget was completely ready. We started the shooting, but we succeeded to finish it with some. By the end, some obstacles have been thrown by Polish Film Institute, but we overcame it. So we showed the film in Venice, which we knew that for that kind of the project to have the support and the platform of important, biggest international festival is crucial, and the film was extremely well received there. And we had the jury prize, but also we had a lot of attention, and our sales agent who was supporting us as well financially sold the film practically to, I don't know, 25, 30 countries, anyway, quite widely. And in that moment started the real hate campaign in Poland against us, directed by the government. And I expected that it was gonna happen, but I didn't expect that we will have the honor to be attacked by the highest authorities, because we've been attacked by the Minister of Justice first, he was the first and the most perseverant in calling me Nazi propaganda, Hitler, Stalin, Putin, and several other names. But also by President of the country, Mr. Duda, Mr. Kaczynski also took part in that campaign, Prime Minister, of course. It was so exaggerated that somehow I think they overdid it. And by the end, it was election, pre-electoral time, so it was very, the atmosphere was very hot. And we've been afraid that even if I was not extremely touched by terror attacks, that it's always possible, to find some deranged or fanatical person who would like to change, to translate the words into the action. So when I've been in Poland for the premiere of the movie and traveling to the movie, we decided to have the bodyguards for me. But on the other hand, the reaction of the people was opposite. It was first, such an unprecedented attack created a lot of publicity. The people have been suddenly aware of the film and curious. And we had great box office in Poland, so we made.
Thanks to the government of Poland for the great box office on the movie. So
I hope that Mr. Trump maybe can help us when we open the film in the US.
We'll let him know about it. So we want to take a couple questions from our wonderful audience here. If anybody has a chance or had a question that they wanted to have a chance to ask. Yes, right here.
Can we hope that this refugee situation on Belarus-Poland border will somehow improve after the Kaczynski regime is overthrown?
Well, we are trying to really make the influence on new Polish government that they have to cease at least the most cruel proceeding like pushback, that the pushbacks have to be forbidden. And so far it didn't change, but we have a lot of supporters also inside of the government and inside of Senate. And I hope that in the question of months when that kind of the proceeding will be officially illegal. Because the problem with the government before is that they legalized it. Something which is illegal was legalized, and that is very dangerous and precedence, because if you legalize the violence as a response to the conflict, that kind of the conflict, then you go on the path which after very quickly can lead you into the massive murder. And it's what I'm afraid of in general about, the migration crisis, that it can turn to the very, very cruel and very bloody end. For example, I heard one of Texan politicians saying that the migrants who are crossing the border with US has to be shot. Has to be killed, and it's only the fear that it can be persecuted by Mr. Biden keeps us from doing that. And several politicians, right-wing politicians in Europe, started to pronounce practically the same thing. As you know very well from the history, and I know because I was dealing in my movies with the history of 20th century. the world's history of the 20th century. It's very short distance between the words and the action. So I think that we have to be really careful and aware where we are going. You know, we're accepting some speeches and also some procedures.
Thank you. All right, another question from the public?
So what is your next project and what are you working on now and what are you interested in?
The next project which I will start very soon, the shooting in the beginning of April. It is a film, I think quite unconventional biography of the writer Franz Kafka. And we are shooting, it will be Czech with Polish-German co-production and hopefully will be ready at the beginning of 2025.
That's wonderful. And do you feel that the success of Green Border has helped the next project, I hope, or is it all the same sort of journey every time we're trying to get a new film up and going?
Well, it's always difficult. It's more and more difficult for independent projects in our days, but non-commercial projects, I mean. But certainly I have a relatively very good situation now. It means the awareness of my last film is bigger than of my previous films, at least in the last 10 years. And the film was touching people so deeply, those who've seen it, that it's somehow it gives me the feeling of how to say, not self-confidence, because I don't think that I was like not having that, but feeling that the cinema can really have some weight. Of course, doing film about Kafka or doing contemporary, very actual, very relevant story is something different. It's a different challenge. But somehow what Kafka was and what he wrote has the connection with our today's situation, and from different perspective, from more intellectual perspective and more aesthetic perspective, I will try to touch the same questions which are in the film you've seen today.
We can't wait. So I'm going to take one final question here from the audience. Just want to give somebody else a chance. Yes, ma'am.
Do you feel like there might be ever any hope of criminal proceedings against perpetrators of any crimes that have been committed, either national courts or international courts such as the ICC?
I hope so. I hope so, because I think what is the most demoralizing is unpunished crime. Especially if that crime is committed by the representatives of state. So I hope so, but it depends very much if the society will be perseverant in execution of that kind of the proceedings. It means I know the people who are fighting for that, and if they ask me for help or for support, I am giving it, and I think that with the new government it will be easier.
We want to congratulate you on this incredible film, this magnificent film, which has spoken to us so deeply, and to your entire team, including your incredible actors just across the board. The performances are so wonderful. Your producers and writers and everybody who's been moving this film forward. We're just so honored to have it here and to have you with us virtually tonight. So, and thank you to the audience.
Ukraine, I was telling, is the film made by my young colleague Maciek Hamela, who I believe was living in Austin for some time. And in the film he did when helping as a volunteer the Ukrainian refugees inside of the Ukraine, and taking them with his van to the safer places. The film is shortlisted for the long feature documentary, and it's called, what is the title? Do you remember?
Sorry?
In the
rear view. Thank you, Joanna. In the rear view.
The rear view, yeah, because it's like that film has 5 titles in different countries, but it's one of the most moving and human film I've seen about the refugees exactly and the war. But at the same time, it's it will blow me away, and I think you have to watch it if it's only possible.
All right, thank you for telling us about it. We'll be tracking it with ... and we'll let everybody know when we're able to bring it. So thank you so much for being with us, Agnieszka Holland.